Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Okay, so the last of the waistcoat series, which is standard waistcoat. Oh, yeah, this is from the side, by the way. And we're going to put a collar on it, and we're going to make it double-breasted. Okay, so of course it will be lined, might as well stick a pocket in it, and yes, I know, how exciting is that? So how do we get the design? Fold that over. So we need the standard waistcoat state, and we need to extend it. Now the lining, we need to do the same, but we need to cut out a panel for the collar. Now this panel we can then flip over so we can make it in one go, so it's a smooth seam, and this panel we can use as a pattern to make a piece on the outer lining, which we will then sew to the lining, so when it folds over it'll be the right way round. Now I hope that kind of makes sense. Obviously what I'm going to do is take you through step by step of sewing, even though I have cut it out already, and I should not use Sharpie marker pens, honestly. Be giggling away. Alright, so I have my machine set up with light blue thread. Now whenever I do a sew, I always sew the bits and then sew the bits together. So what I have here is my back panel. Now I'm choosing to use lightly coloured thread on the back panel, but for the top stitches I will need to do slightly darker thread so it doesn't show, because obviously sending the machine. Okay, oh that was a good start. Anyway, alright, so for the back panel I will be using light blue thread so it doesn't show. When I do the front half I'll be using black thread so that it doesn't show. And it's always a point, where do you turn it over? So for my back panel, what I need to do is I need to hem the bottom, the arms and the neckline. So I've placed it right side down, shiny side down, and folded this over twice. Now the bottom seam is going to be easy enough because we're obviously sewing on the straight, but we do have to be a bit more careful when we sew the neck and armpit, because obviously we'll be hemming on a curve, but it does look better if we do a sort of roll over hem than it would if we don't. So okay, so when we're going to do the roll over hem on a curve, then we need, I should have done that first really, shouldn't I? Come back to this. So that's all you need to do for the bottom. Make sure it's cut straight and then it's easier to sew. And all these end bits, all these scraggly bits, they're going to be sealed in between the front lining and the front of the waistcoat. So when we do a curve, we can either pin it so that we can keep the curve, or we can sew an inch and readjust it. Now I'm going to go for the sew inch readjust. Now some of you might have heard that satin, and especially this type of satin, is really hard to sew. There are tricks to it. You can I think you can damp it slightly, although that might leave watermarks. You can make sure you have a sharp needle and a fine needle, or you can do all sorts of things. I actually quite like, I'll hold a frame and then I find that works better. If you have a machine that the needle goes to one side, then sometimes, or it is easier to sew with that needle on the furthest setting away, and what that does is means that you have as much possible material underneath the teeth, so it makes it slightly easier. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. I am now just literally going to do the tags at the back. And what I'm going to do is I folded this in half, right side to right side, and because it's satin it's going to be quite easy to turn inside out. And then if you leave half an inch, it just means that you've got something to hold onto, and then we can quite easily turn that inside out. If you have a knitting needle, then that's grand, or if you have a pen, then that's fine. But it's satin, you know, it wants to move, it just wants to move. So there we go, that's turned inside out. I'm now going to use the catch at the back just to measure it, and we can either measure it before we sew, or we can fold this over, which was what I was planning to do, and that way we've got it the right size. So, oh, yes, it's easy if you have a knitting needle to hand, isn't it? I think I'm getting worse, you know. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just doing one of these. Of course it would be easier to do it two halves, but you know what I'm like. I'm just going to do one and then cut it in half. So that's that done. And then we need to measure that to size. And what I'm going to do is that seam of stitches I'm going to keep up, and I'm just literally going to fold that over. I'm going to put the end under the sewing machine, making sure that some of it catches the teeth, because that's the problem here. It's got nothing to grip to actually sew. And then so we can see all of these edges. And sometimes I'm going to have to rub the seams just to keep them in line. So that's my back tassel done. And then I suppose it is important. It means that it is a waistcoat. It doesn't mean it's a jacket that hasn't got arms on. It means that it is a waistcoat. So there's a few other jobs I can do before I change my thread. I have my lining here with my piece cut out to do the collar. And if you hold it up, you can see where the collar is taken from. And then right side to right side, let's get this sewn. And that's grand. Now before I sew my lining onto my front of the waistcoat, I have to place the pocket in. So I'm just going to lay that on my knee, more as remind me which way round it goes. And this, as it's quite dark linen and I'm turning it inside out, it won't show through. So all I'm doing here is I'm sewing the pocket flats, and I have 2 of these. And every corner I'm leaving the needle down. This is so that I get a nice crisp edge when I turn it inside out. So you're going to go back a bit there. And it's quite nice as far as I'm concerned, because you can actually see the stitches. What I've done is I've sewn probably 80% round, and then I can use that hole just to turn it inside out. Now it's entirely up to you whether you use the fold of the cloth or whether you use whether you seam it like I do. It is personal preference. Now I always prefer to sew over the fold because there's less bits to lose. What I do is I have my pattern cut out and everything, and then I have a pile of little bits. Now if I just had this cut into 2 rather than 1, it means that I've got even more bits. So yeah, rubbing it between my thumb and my forefinger, I have the front of my waistcoat here with my extension for my collar, and just check that I've got it at the back. And what I'm going to do, fold it in half. I'm going to straighten the corner out. Basically what I'm going for is that I'm making sure that this is straight by straightening it out. So I've then got the width of my pocket, because I need my flap to be able to cover that, and with some sharp scissors, I tell you, these scissors were sharp yesterday, that's really weird. And I'm going to do a dog tooth, and this is just so that I've then got flaps. So we need the right side. I always prefer to use separate squares and then sew them together. It is literally a personal preference. And what I'm going to do is, in between my dog tooth, I'm going to sew this, and then I'm going to push it through the other side. So it is a case of keeping it straight and trusting. I know, how hard is that? I'm going to bring it back to the beginning, give my machine loads of thread. Take the other one, lay it across my little dog tooth flap, and sew again. And because I'm sewing these 2 blind, as it were, what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to make any bones about this. I'm going to check that I've caught it all. And as you can see, I've missed a bit. So all I'm going to do is now make sure it's straight at the bottom and sew again, so that I know that everything is in position. So that's grand. That's all I wanted to do. You know, sometimes you do have a feeling that it's not. And then these 2 get pulled through, obviously leaving the crisp edge on the right side, and then I'm literally now going to sew my pocket up. So, where am I? Okay, next job is to sew the lining and the front together. Now, I'm not going to sew the back in just yet, because obviously I need to finish the back before, and yeah, so I'm not going to do that just yet, but I can still do the armholes, or lack of armholes, ready for the next bit. So when I change my colour thread, I'm going to go back to the flap for the top, and I can literally overstitch and cover up all that messiness, and I can also seal this, but I'm not going to do it with this colour thread. So right side up for the base and right side down for the lining, and you can see that now that we've done that panel, they're actually the same size. So always a good idea to put the lighter fabric on top, or the smaller piece on top. So what I need to do now is I need to sew the arms. I need to sew one of the downward spikes of the front. I'm going to leave the other downward spike open so that I can turn it inside out, and then I'm going to sew up this front piece along here. So okay, I will be back with you when I have something to show you. Okay, so I've got the back to do. What I'm going to do is just catch up with everything we've done on one half. Thank you. Hi. So before I sew up the last seam of this, I've sewn it up already, I need to sew on my pocket top. Yeah? Okay, so I'm just sort of squidging everything out of the way, and I'm going to place that over there. Obviously it was a case of not wanting to change the thread, but I would have done this before, and in fact I did the other one before I did that. So yeah, place it over the cut hole on the right side, and this seam here I'm just going to pop in, slide your fingernail under it, and then making sure that you've only got that, I'm just going to sew a line over the top. So I suppose I could have turned it all inside out. I didn't think of that. There we go. So that's all I'm doing. Now, what we have here is two opposite fronts, and I assume that's the front. Yes, it's upside down. And the back is now completely finished. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back, I'm going to thread it inside here. Now I want the shiny surface of the back to lie next to the front, so next to the cloth. So it's a case of, when I turn it inside out, I'm going to have the back the right way round. Yeah, it's one of those jobs, it's fiddly, it's slippery, so we're just going to take our time. And then we have to watch the weight of the garment as well, so we don't sort of get it in position and then pull it out. And any flaky bits I'm going to sew in. So let's do it around this way, because that side seems to be a bit more amenable. Lovely. Now just double check this end. There we go, perfect. what I'm left with really is right side to right side. Okay, now I have the side here. This is my armhole, and hopefully I should be able to find my side quite easily. And again, I don't want to twist it, that's for sure. So I'm going to line up my seam with the first half. I'm going to place that in the sewing machine and use it as a third hand stroke, or we could use a pin. And then I'm going to line up the bottom of that, make sure I'm sewing all three, and make sure these ugly ends are all inside this lining. Because we're inside out, we don't need to worry about the colour cotton, because we're not going to see those stitches. Okay, so that's what we're left with. We have the front there, I can tidy that up, and we have the back. And we have to pop this seam just by sticking our fingers in it, and then we can sew round the front. So that's easy enough. I can do that now, or I can do the other one first. Now, so let's just do this top stitching. Yeah, literally take both raw ends, push in, and then pull tight. So in this case, what I'm going to do, my third hand, leave my foot down. Well, I've got my needle in and I've lifted my foot up, and then I can literally sort this out. So if you do have any flaky bits that decide that they want to be shown, well, a pin is a good idea just to push them in. So this is 1/2 done, except for the buttonholes and to tidy up that pocket. But really that was kind of my fault, because I should have done it before I changed over thread. So this is on the inside, so it's not going to show, but you can see it's worth the while just doing it in the right colour for the lining. Okay, so now we have shiny side. We're going to hold shiny side and place hand inside, so that I've got the shiny side of the back lining lined up with the right side of the waistcoat. Now I'm going to put that under, and then I'm going to adjust it, so because I know that corner's right, but I don't think this one is. Did I say this was the easy bit? I'm such a liar if I did. Okay, let's give that another go. So that's better. Let's make sure that's all pulled through. Double check that I've got the bottom, and I haven't, so I'm going to go over that again. There we are. Now I'm going to put my hand inside there again, and I am going to go up to the seam that I've just taken, and I am following this hem of this armhole. Again, I've got my seams right in that top corner, and I'm going to hold it there with the stitches. And now I just need to adjust my seam at the bottom, check that I'm sewing everything, and away I go. Pew, pew, pew. That's done. So yeah, things to watch for, that you don't twist the whole garment. and it's going to need an iron. That's all there is to it. So what we have here is the front, and we'll iron it so it folds down and you've got the right facing showing through. But yeah, it is going to need an iron just to hold it in place. So we now need to make sure that you haven't got any strands of thread that are pulling the garment to misshape it. Put my fingers in, pinched it, placing it underneath the foot, and then sewing this last seam up. Okay, so that's that. Now, what we need to do is, I'm going to take the other side, is we need some buttonholes. So our collar here starts from there, so we only can have our buttonholes in this square here. Now, okay, if we've got a sewing machine like this one, then we can use the buttonhole stitcher. Personally, and it is personal preference, I prefer old-fashioned buttonholes, which my machine obviously doesn't. So what I've got here, my last bit of the to-do pile of the make, is little squares of fabric, and I am going to place them right side to right side, and I am going to sew a square. Now traditionally I suppose this sort of buttonhole would be done with a piece of very thin leather. I'm not doing that. I'm not. It's not that I don't want to sew leather, it's just that I don't, yeah. It's yucky. Oh, come on, machine. I suppose in a way it would look better if I changed my colour thread. Maybe that's what it's telling me. So, yes. If this doesn't work this time, then I'm going to give up. Nah, we're alright. Lovely. So, along the top, a square, foot up, needle down, a square. Oh, you should measure it before you do it, by the way, just so you know. Choose your buttons, and then straight along, and then straight along. So what I'm left with here is a rectangle. Not particularly rocket science, I three-handed it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some very sharp scissors, which I have put on the floor. I never knock anything on the floor. And I did go through a stage where I always used to leave my scissors open because I found that I could look at them and I just did not see them. And then it's very rare I get little furry visitors into my room, like pussycats. They don't like the noise of the machines. And then I thought, well, if they tread on one, they're gonna really hurt themselves. And I don't really know what they do in the daytime, do I? So I've stopped doing that now. But I suppose in a way it was a bad habit. What I'm trying to do whilst I'm yakking away, talking about relevant things, is I am pulling through this square of fabric. I know. It's not hard. It's not hard. I'm just making a right pig's ear of it. Now, if you prefer to make your squares of fabric a bit bigger, then I can concur that that's a good idea. But I always do them that size. So, here we go. I now have a buttonhole, and you can either stitch round again, or you can hand sew that into place. So I just think it looks so much better. And yeah, I'm going to do matching ones. But other than that, other than the final test is in the pudding, yeah, the final test is in the iron, I think we should say, shouldn't we? Let's have a look. And then we have our collar. Oh, I don't know if I said this. I don't think I did. We don't wear collars on the back of waistcoats because if we were wearing a jacket on top of that, then it would get very uncomfortable. So it is a bit of a cheat really, isn't it, that you don't have to do it. But thank you so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Hi, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Okay, now I really need to do something about my scraps, because at the minute I store my bigger straps in a box and my smaller straps in pretty much a bin. Yeah, it's just a bin. So you can see that I don't find everything really easy. And I do need these because I do art quilts, so it's a case of, you know, I just need a small bit of fabric that's a colour. So what I'm going to do, now it's basically a wall hanging shoe rack. Now I'm sure you've seen these on telly. I've got some PVC polyfine urine thingy, and I'm going to sew straps across with the same PVC, and I'm going to pleat the bottom. I'm going to leave the top loose, and I'm going to hang it on the wardrobe door. So the first thing I need to know is the size of the wardrobe door. It's easy enough. And then I need to know the straps. So it's the width plus, I think, 1.5 inches for each pocket. And hopefully I can go for 3 pockets. So, as you can guess, this is going to be quite sharp and it's not going to last. So what I'm going to do is I've got all my straps cut out ready. I am going to take one length, fold it in half, and I am going to sew along this edge, which should be easy enough, and then I'm going to fold over this piece of fabric, so to give a strengthening and better looking pocket. So let's just do a little bit. Now all I'm doing with my sewing machine is a normal size stitch, and then I'm going to take this and place it under the sewing machine and sew again. So I've got my work cut out for me and I'll be back soon. Hi, welcome back. So what I have here is my sheet. Now I've marked it out with pins along the crease of 1/3. Now I've done this so that I've got an idea where to do the next stage. Now it's not accurate, and those pins are nothing more than a guideline for me. So that's easy enough. Alright, I think we should start at the bottom. It's a good place as any. So I'm just going to flatten this out slightly. And you can see that these are 1/3 along. So just 2 lines to make 3. Lovely. I need to line this up at the bottom. Now I can sew this. I am going to do the binding again over the edges, so it is kind of tricky whether to or not. But what I do need to do, we love a big project, don't we, is I need to get my pockets ready. So what I now need to know is 1/3 of this sheet. Now I know this is a big sew in the respect that it's a big thing. It's not overly complicated, it's just probably, I don't know, but it's simple enough to do. So that's that. Now all I need to do is from that pin down to that pin up, I need to sew a line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trust my cutting and I'm going to use the edge. As long as this top edge is straight, then I know that I'm going straight. So yes, noisy creaky paper and my go pedal. How could I have done that? Oh, who knows? And simple, straightforward sewing. I've got to make sure it can go forward and that I'm not catching anything underneath. Let's take this out and let's put some thread in the bobbin. Oh, do you know, I hate it when I do that. Because you never know if I've actually sewn the last piece. Okay. Alrighty, so bobbin threaded, pins marked, fabric pre-perforated. Let's go again. So as long as I keep that straight and I keep this flat and I keep this flat and I don't get caught up, it's a simple matter of sewing to the pins. Sew on the binding as well, just to make it a bit more secure. Lovely. Pull this out again. Line it up, and we've got the pocket there, so we know that we're along all the right lines. And again, as long as these top lines are straight, then I'm straight. Line up my pins and sew. There we go, keep it all flat and away I go. So that's that. That's how the next stage, as it were. And then what we need to do is we need to lie that flat, take our next pocket, and you don't need much in between pockets. In fact, you could do it like that, but I'm going to give myself an inch and then literally sew, pin to mark it, and then sew to the next pin. So yeah, if I was to advise you how to do this, I think I'd tell you to tidy your table up first because you're going to knock everything on the floor. But there's nothing difficult here. There really isn't. It's a simple case of pure volume. Okay, so that's my next step. Another thing I'm going to do before I I do the binding around the outside is I'm going to, I don't know if I should jump to this or not. I think I might be jumping. Alright, so I have a strip of fabric here. Now it's half the width of the binding, so it's 1.5 inches. I'm going to sew it together, and then I am going to squash it flat. I'm not going to turn it inside out or anything. And then these sewn lines I'm going to sew over. Okay, so that's like my next step, but I'll be back. Hello there, well, it's Fiona, welcome back. So we have our pockets. They're attached only in the middle. Now what I'm doing next is I'm binding around the outside of the thingy thing. Now what I'm doing is I'm sewing, but I'm not catching the pockets. All I'm doing is, as before, I have a fold of fabric and I'm sewing these two rough edges along the outside. So that's easy enough, really, isn't it? I've just got to do it. Now, when I become a line with the second pocket down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this strap in there, and then I'm going to sew it in line with the other pocket. So this is just to hang it over the door. So let's see why my machine has gone, I haven't got any tension on the bobbin, and reload it. Now, I love taffeta. It really is like my favourite fabric. But as you can see, just handling it this much, and it has gone everywhere. Honestly, I look like the Yeti. When I stand up, I have to give myself a little shake because I am literally molting orange thread. But, you know, such is life. Even if I knew that this was going to happen, I don't think it would have changed my mind. So I don't have to worry about the pockets for 3 of the sides, but I do have to worry about the pockets on the bottom one. So that's where we're going next. I just want to finish up here and we can turn it around. So that's simple enough. The next sew I'll be doing is I'll fold it over and then I'll just literally zoom down to the bottom. So it is taking shape, and this taggy bit will be on the back, and I'll probably trim that just so that I can tuck it in neatly. So yes, 3 sides are easy. Now this bottom one, as we know, has the pockets in. So I've started sewing the back of it. And what we have to do is when we come to a pocket, we have to make sure that doesn't get caught up. So I'll get it back in the sewing machine. And I must admit, it is taking shape, even though at some points I do feel like I've been wrestling. So what I've done is I've made sure that all the pockets are out of the way, and I'm just sewing along this line. So I've got my 2 raw edges here. And let's just finish that. That's good. Unwind it all from my bobbin. So now I've turned it over, and what I need to do is I need to sew this piece of binding over, but I need to incorporate the pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a few stitches at the point of the corner. Now this is just to get everything secure and in the machine, and there's a lot to be said for doing that. Now of course I can do this with pins, there's no reason why not to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dart in. So I'm going to place the fold and the dart and then fold this over, very much like I was doing quilt binding. So, now the first one's going to be hard, and then it should all take shape. So let's get this lined up, everything's in its place, and when we come to the bottom of this pocket, I'm going to fold it back in on itself, fold that over and take the pin out when I get a bit closer. So yes, very easy, lots to do. We're going to make a start and I will be back with you when I do something new. So come to the pin and then I can do the next pocket. So I'm going to pick up the excess and fold it over and then fold over this piece of binding. So I've got that firmly in my little mitt and away I go. I'm going to come to the end of that pocket, take the excess, pinch it over and then fold over my binding, and any of these sort of straggly bits I'm going to tuck in. So, but it's up to you, you know, I can't imagine any fabric worse than this, but if it is a problem then maybe we could trim it. So there we go. Alright, I'm pausing the camera again. So I am literally just finishing off the binding along the top of the fabric shoe hiding. Okay, now I must admit I feel like I've wrestled a Yeti. So there are straps and they hook over the door, so you will see these from the other side. But you know, I think it's okay. Now, next job. So, we need to sew up the bottom of the pockets. Now, I have a piece of binding here. And basically, what I plan to do is squash that flat and then sew over the bottom of the pockets. So, but as you can see, the pocket is like this. So what I have to do is I have to take a pinch and take a pinch, and then I can get that to lie flat. So then we've got that flyy open bit. Okay, let's get this lined up on the machine. Now, okay, I'm doing one near the end. If you were doing the middle one, then what we would do is I would roll this up so that it doesn't get caught up and it doesn't get in the way. Now what I do have to worry about is this strap, so I am just going to restart this and move the back strap that goes over the door. So, alrighty, so I've got my first pleating ready, and it's the same as we did on the bottom, and it's completely up to you whether you lie this flat and pin it first. I'm then going to whoosh round my piece of binding here so that it lies flat, and then I've come to the next pocket, so I can then pinch in my next gather. So lie my binding over the top, and then watching that the weight of the thing doesn't pull it out of the way. So, there we go. End of my second pocket, picking up the excess and then pinching it and putting it down. So I am not actually sewing my binding, so I'm just going to go back a bit and then rolling this just so that the raw edges are covered. So now that I've started the last pleat of the second one, I can just take my third one, I can pleat that so it's lying flat, lay over this binding, for a better word, and away I go. Okay. Now my machine's very hot, very tired. I think for the last 3 days I've sort of said to it, I'll put some oil in you tonight when I go to bed and then we can leave it there. And I haven't, so my poor machine. And basically what it's doing, it's telling me that the tension is wrong. So the bobbin tension is wrong. Alright, so I'm just coming up to the end. I'm going to trim this bit. Believe it or not, I have been trimming as I'm going, and then I can just push in that end and then sew over the top so it's nice and tidy. I know I'm going to have such a hard job literally cutting these threads so to get it looking nice, but I am there. That is the last sew. Need to get it out of the sewing machine. Right, I'm going to put my small scraps in a pocket and take it over to the door. Okay, you ready? Big reveal. No, you can't really see anything, can you? No. Oh, well. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, well, I'm happy with it, even though it's coming out on video that it looks like, well, I can't even describe what it looks like. Okay, thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.